I started saving in early November. It was the little things. No more afternoon coffees from the shop near my office. I packed lunch every day. Skipped a few social outings. Sold a pair of boots I never wore. No one knew, not that anyone would have asked, but every decision I made for 6 weeks pointed to one goal: buying a gift for my mom. Not just any gift, a real one. Thoughtful. Something beautiful. For once. I remembered this one night, years ago, when we passed a window display at a boutique downtown. My mom stopped and stared at a scarf, a soft, sea glass green silk piece, hand-stitched. She touched the glass with the tips of her fingers and said, "Pretty, huh, not for people like me, though." Then she walked away like she hadn't said anything at all. That stuck with me. So when I saw something similar online, Italian silk, subtle floral print, elegant but not loud, I knew it was the one. It wasn't cheap, but it wasn't reckless either. I justified the cost by telling myself it was overdue. After all, it had been years since I'd given her a gift that wasn't practical or last minute. Maybe this would be different. Maybe she'd see that I saw her, that I noticed the quiet moments she never thought mattered. I wrapped it myself. No gift bags. I took my time, folded it in a cream box, tied it with gold ribbon, and added a handwritten card. For all the things I never say, I love you. Mom. I didn't know what I expected. A smile, a softened expression, a hug, maybe something. Anything that said, "I see you too." I waited 2 days before giving it to her. I wanted the timing to be right, not rushed, not forced. I chose a Sunday dinner, when a few relatives would be over, and everyone would be in a good mood. Or so I thought. I placed the box by her plate before she sat down. She looked at it like it was a bill she wasn't ready to pay. I told her it was just something small, a thank you, really. She didn't say much, just nodded and set it aside. I told myself she was waiting until after dinner. But part of me already knew this wasn't going to go the way I hoped. Dinner was pot roast and mashed potatoes, the kind of meal that pulls everyone back into the same old roles. My uncle talked too loudly. My cousin scrolled her phone under the table, and I tried to keep my eyes on my plate while pretending not to wait for her to open the box. She didn't touch it through the entire meal. I watched her hand rest near it, just near it, as if it might bite if she lifted the lid. At one point, I almost reached over to nudge it closer, but something in me stopped. I didn't want to beg for appreciation. That wasn't the point of the gift. After dessert, as plates were being cleared, someone finally noticed. "What's this?" my aunt asked, picking up the box and reading the tag. From Casey Fancy. That did it. My mom sighed that long. Exaggerated breath she does when she's trying to be polite but would rather be anywhere else. She peeled back the ribbon, opened the lid, and stared down at the scarf like she didn't recognize it. Then came the words, "Why waste money on this?" Just like that. No laugh to soften it. No playful tone. Just flat. Dismissive. Like I'd handed her a used napkin. The room quieted for a second. Then someone chuckled nervously. My cousin said something about how expensive gifts stress her out too, and the moment moved on like nothing happened. Except it had. I sat frozen in my chair, my smile glued on like a bad patch job. My ears were ringing. My hands curled into fists under the table. I nodded and said, "It's okay. I just thought you'd like it." I said it calmly, like I wasn't unraveling inside. She closed the box and pushed it aside like it was something to be dealt with later, a utility bill, a cluttered receipt. No thank you. No acknowledgement of the weeks I spent piecing it together. No one asked me how I felt, not one person. And maybe that hurt worse than her reaction. The way everyone accepted it. The the way my family moved right along, laughing at some old memory, asking for second helpings, while I sat there choking on the shame of having wanted something from her in the first place. Later that evening, I washed the dishes alone. She'd gone upstairs already, claiming she had a headache. I stared at the sink, at the foam rising around the edges of the dirty plates, and I thought about how stupid I must have looked hoping a piece of silk could cut through 26 years of emotional cement. I knew she was practical. I knew she didn't like fuss. But what I didn't know, what I hadn't prepared for, was the way that one sentence would echo through the quiet of the house long after everyone else had gone home. Why waste money on this? Maybe what she really meant was, why waste money on me? And maybe what I was really asking, underneath the ribbon and the card, was, am I allowed to love you, even if you don't know how to receive it? The next morning, she acted like nothing happened. She asked if I wanted tea. She folded laundry in front of the TV like she always did. She hummed a little that half-tune she's never known the words to, and she never once mentioned the box, the scarf, or what she said the night before. It was like we'd quietly agreed to erase it. But the silence between us didn't feel neutral. It felt heavy, like static on a phone line that made every word afterward come through distorted. And the worst part was, I knew this feeling. I'd lived in it my whole life. Growing up, my mother wasn't cruel. She was controlled, calculated. The kind of woman who ironed her jeans, made lists for everything, and measured love not in words, but in whether your clothes were clean, your lunch was packed, and the bills were paid on time. She didn't do hugs. She didn't do, I'm proud of you. She did structure. She did rules. When I got an A on my science project in 6th grade, she looked at the paper and said, good. Don't let it slip next time. When I made the varsity team in high school, her only question was how I'd manage practices around homework. When I told her I got into college on a partial scholarship, she just nodded and reminded me to apply for more aid. And somewhere in between those moments, I stopped expecting joy from her, or softness, or recognition. I learned to celebrate in silence and to keep my need for affection folded away like a note in a drawer. But it still lived there. Even when I moved out, even when I started working, even when I built a life that didn't rely on her, that quiet longing that need to be seen, not for what I did, but for who I was, never fully went away. I used to tell myself she had her reasons. My dad left when I was 10. One day he went out to buy drywall and never came back. Just a voicemail, a scribbled note, and a trail of debt. I watched her go from stay-at-home wife to full-time, double-shift survivor. She didn't cry. She didn't rage. She just tightened, like a screw pulled too far in. She learned that needing anything made her vulnerable. And I think deep down she believed that if she couldn't afford to want anything, then no one else in the house should either. Especially not me. But as a kid, you don't have that language. You just know the air is cold, and you start holding your breath when you enter rooms she's in. You start treating your own joy like a liability. I think that's why the scarf mattered so much. Not because it was expensive or beautiful or perfectly wrapped, but because it was my attempt to say, you're allowed to have something soft, something that asks for nothing in return, something that says, you matter. And when she rejected it, or rather, rejected herself through it, it felt like she was rejecting me too. Not the gift, not the money, not the gesture. Me. That was the part I couldn't get out of my head. Why did she react the way she did? Was it embarrassment? Guilt? Or had I just made her uncomfortable by offering a kind of tenderness she didn't know how to hold? Maybe the scarf was never the problem. Maybe love, when you've taught yourself not to need it, starts to feel like a threat, a spotlight you want to run from. And maybe I should have known better, but part of me still hoped that, for once, she'd let herself be warm, just for a moment. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the day in my head, the way her fingers barely brushed the ribbon, the flat tone in her voice, the way no one said a damn thing. But mostly, I kept thinking about her face, blank, as if I'd handed her a burden instead of a gift. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, arms crossed over my chest like I could hold myself together by force. I wanted to shake it off, tell myself it wasn't personal, that maybe she'd had a bad day, or maybe she didn't know how to react. But that wasn't really the truth. Was it? Because it was personal. I didn't just buy her a scarf. I handed her a chance, a moment to meet me halfway and to crack open the distance between us, even just a sliver. And she closed the door before I even finished knocking. At around 2 a.m., I got up to get a glass of water. The house was dark except for the soft hallway light, the kind she always left on just in case. Old habit. I passed her door and heard something. A soft, almost rhythmic sound. I paused. It wasn't snoring. It wasn't sleep. It was crying. I froze. My mother doesn't cry. I mean, she must. She's human. But I'd never seen it. Never heard it. Not when my dad left. Not when the car broke down on the way to her third job. Not when the roof leaked and we spent 2 weeks eating canned soup by candlelight. But there it was, muffled sobs, careful ones, the kind you try to swallow. I leaned in, barely breathing. Her door was cracked open 1/2 inch, and I saw her, sitting on the edge of her bed in her nightgown, shoulders hunched, one hand covering her mouth, the other holding the scarf. Not just holding it, gripping it, like it was anchoring her. The box was open beside her, the tissue paper carefully refolded, the ribbon laid out flat. She didn't see me. I didn't make a sound. And then I heard her whisper, "I don't deserve this. I don't deserve anything good." It hit me so hard I had to step back, lean against the wall. My throat clenched. That voice, quiet, breaking, wasn't the voice of the woman who scoffed at my gift. It was someone else. Someone small. Someone scared. She hadn't rejected the scarf because she hated it. She'd rejected it because it scared her. Because receiving something beautiful, something thoughtful, meant admitting that she was worthy of it. And maybe that was the hardest thing for her to believe. I didn't go in. I didn't say anything. I just stood there in the hallway, the cool floor beneath my feet, and let the realization wash over me. All these years, I thought she didn't want love, but maybe she just didn't believe she could keep it. She never mentioned that night. Not the scarf, not the tears, not the way she whispered like someone confessing to the dark, and I didn't either. There wasn't a hallmark moment. No big, sweeping apology. No, I've been so wrong, or thank you for trying. Life, in our house, didn't operate that way. We were a family that moved forward by pretending nothing ever knocked us down in the first place. But something shifted. It was small, at first, barely noticeable unless you knew what to look for. She made me tea the next morning without asking how I wanted it, but she remembered. 2 sugars, no cream. She didn't say anything when she handed it to me, just placed it beside my notebook like it was a peace offering she didn't have the words to say aloud. A few days later, I saw the scarf again. She wore it to the grocery store, just looped once, loosely, like it had always been hers. I watched her tug it gently into place before stepping out the door, smoothing it over her collar like it mattered. And that's when I realized this was her language, not words, not grand gestures. but subtle acknowledgments, quiet shifts. She never told me she was sorry for what she said, but she didn't have to, because the real apology came through the way she started leaving the hallway light on a little longer, the way she folded my laundry and left it on my bed without a word, the way she looked at me one evening while we were cooking, like she was about to say something, but just smiled instead. She was trying, and I'd spent so long wanting her to love me on my terms. I almost missed that she'd been loving me on hers all along, just buried under decades of survival. I wrote it down in my journal that week. Sometimes love doesn't sound like "I'm proud of you." Sometimes it sounds like "Be careful on the roads," or "I saved the last slice for you," or even nothing at all, just a scarf folded neatly at the foot of your bed. We weren't suddenly close. We didn't become the kind of mother-daughter pair that talked about feelings over wine and photo albums. But I stopped needing that. What I needed was this: to see her trying. To know that deep inside all her silence and sharp edges was someone who did care, and maybe, for the first time, was learning how to show it. And for now, that was enough.